It's billed as one of the most significant pieces of climate change legislation in U.S. history. But deep within the Inflation Reduction Act is a series of concessions to big oil companies.
So in order to get more offshore wind, we're going to have to allow more offshore oil and gas drilling, which we have fought for decades since we started.
A closer look reveals that clean energy projects are only allowed after the further expansion of fossil fuel production for the next 10 years.
So buried very deeply in there is this provision for any further offshore wind lease granted. 60 million acres of offshore lands must be offered for offshore oil and gas development. That has the potential of almost doubling our current amount of offshore oil and gas drilling.
Every credible scientist has said, like, if we really have any chance of addressing, the climate crisis, we have to stop building out more fossil fuel infrastructure.
In that same vein, the Interior Department cannot approve new land-based wind and solar projects until it's sold 2 million acres for oil and gas in the previous 4 months. That's about the size of Yellowstone National Park. The department must offer at least half the total area oil companies wanted. If the department fails to offer the minimum requirements for oil and gas leasing, there won't be any renewable energy projects on public lands or waters.
If you lease something for offshore wind at 100,000 acres, but you're going to allow 60 million acres of oil, what's the point? If you're trying to reduce fossil fuels, if dependency, what's the point of tying those two things together?
Other concessions for the oil and gas industry regarding offshore development include reinstating a previously illegal 2021 Gulf of Mexico oil lease. A federal judge ruled against the 80 million acre transaction after finding that the Interior Department failed to accurately disclose the greenhouse gas emissions that would result from the lease, violating environmental law.
They basically said, and the court said that this is nonsense, that adding more offshore oil and gas would have no effect basically on the climate or overall emissions. And the courts were like, yeah, pretty sure if you pull billions of gallons of oil out of the ground, you're going to have a climate impact. You can't just say it's sort of a wash and it doesn't matter.
Now, due to the Inflation Reduction Act, that sale is back on. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin said he ensured these stipulations were included in the Inflation Reduction Act. His support was absolutely necessary for the Biden administration to pass the bill in an evenly split Senate. So Manchin had leverage to secure provisions for the oil industry.
I've been concerned about efforts by the administration to throttle back oil and gas leasing and production, so I made sure that the Inflation Reduction Act tied the ability to issue wind and solar leases to whether or not Interior is holding significant oil and gas lease sales.
Manchin asserts the added measures will improve American energy security, while also creating revenue that'll help support U.S. education as well as the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Opponents of additional oil and gas leasing are skeptical. The Center for Biological Diversity plans to file a lawsuit for every offshore oil lease granted due to the Inflation Reduction Act, saying it will, quote, destroy livable climate. Their intent to pursue litigation sets up a potential legal showdown that could go on for the next decade, over which time hundreds of millions of acres could be leased for offshore oil and gas production.
Thanks for watching. In this time of media mistrust, Straight Arrow News is on a mission to bring you unbiased, fact-based reporting. So like and subscribe to Straight Arrow News below. And to see all of our content, go to straightarrownews.com.